Item: SCP-1130. Object Class: Safe. Special Containment Procedures: SCP-1130 is to be contained within a standard safe class protective storage locker at Site-12. Please be advised that D-Class personnel used in testing may exhibit erratic and/or aggressive behavior when exiting SCP-1130-2. A team comprised of 1 medical officer with Level 3 clearance and a minimum of 2 Level 2 security personnel is to be maintained at any test site to detain and if necessary sedate test subjects upon re-emergence. Security personnel thus stationed are to carry Dan-inject projector rifles loaded with 3 quinaclidinyl benzylate darts. To avoid public exposure, testing is to be scheduled between the hours of 2 o'clock and 5 o'clock local time and directions are to only be requested for suitably secluded destinations. Civilians witnessing any aspect of testing procedures are to be detained and administered Class A amnestics prior to relocation. Considering currently archived debriefing reports and exploration logs, SCP-1130-2 has been designated a Protean Class Dimensional Anomaly. Any research or security personnel assigned to SCP-1130 are expected to be familiar with relevant guidelines. Description: SCP-1130 is an interactive kiosk providing free directions from a fixed position to any street address within city limits. Its outer structure measures 50 cm x 50 cm x 175 cm and is composed of unadorned sheet metal. A brand LCD touchscreen is set into the front of the kiosk at an angle, beneath which is a 25 cm x 2 cm slot from which directions are dispensed. A maintenance hatch set in the back panel provides access to the interior. No processing unit, power source or printing peripheral have been found inside and SCP-1130 appears to be fully functional without these components. A small tag in the upper right of the back panel identifies it as a model urban wayfinding unit, built by the corporation in 20.1. Covert enquiries with the company have shown that, while it does indeed manufacture this model, no record exists of SCP-1130 having been manufactured, assembled or distributed. SCP-1130's primary anomalous property manifests when directions have been requested and printed. Directions obtained from SCP-1130 will invariably instruct subjects to leave established routes and make use of a door described as Maintenance Portal 26 Sigma, referred to as SCP-1130-1. It takes the form of a severely weathered arched metal door and has never been observed to be in the same location twice, even when the same route is requested multiple times. SCP-1130-1 does not exist in its prescribed location prior to the production of directions by SCP-1130. Multiple subjects following the same set of directions will be able to find and make use of the same door until it closes. At that point, SCP-1130-1 will vanish from sight and subjects left behind will be unable to follow the directions any further. If directions are photocopied, SCP-1130-1 will only appear when following the original specimen. SCP-1130-1 can be recorded by all present when encountered and visual reproductions will show SCP-1130-1 as encountered by subjects following directions. Those subjects who successfully follow directions to their destination and remain suitable for debriefing report SCP-1130-1 vanishing behind them once inside. Additionally, subjects describe having to traverse a space composed of up to kilometers of interconnected halls, rooms and tunnels, designated SCP-1130-2 before finding themselves before SCP-1130-1 again. Spaces encountered are always in a severe state of disrepair and do not seem to be linked in a logical fashion. One test subject reported stepping from what seemed to be an abandoned subway tunnel into the kitchen of a derelict fast food diner. All subjects have described a consistent auditory phenomenon while in SCP-1130-2, but at this point in time its source is unclear. Debriefings and post-event psychological evaluations reveal test subjects seem to develop a persistent sense of being pursued, growing stronger as the time spent in SCP-1130-2 and this phenomenon increases. Extended exposure may lead to development of psychological trauma, depending on the mental and emotional stability of test subjects. After exiting SCP-1130-2, subjects find themselves at their destination. Test results indicate that on average 11.23 seconds lapse between subjects entering and exiting SCP-1130-2. However, this does not take into account the time subjects spend in transit, which may range from several hours to several weeks. Communication of any kind with subjects in transit has proven to be impossible. GPS locator signals give test subjects location upon entering SCP-1130-2 as redacted. This does not change until test subjects emerge from SCP-1130-2. Audio and video recording devices function normally, but will not transmit data while in SCP-1130-2. This necessitates personal recording devices to be worn by test subjects. Addendum 1130-01. Recovery and Preliminary Containment Notes. SCP-1130 was retrieved from its location in, after a number of documented disappearances amongst tourists. Officials were only able to locate one missing individual, who was found wandering through a gated community 7 kilometers from SCP-1130's location. On his person were the directions requested from SCP-1130 and what was later identified as a Queen Elizabeth M17 steel helmet. The Foundation was alerted when details of the case triggered a dedicated monitoring station and a recovery team led by Agent moved to secure SCP-1130. The tourist was located and was administered Class A amnestics. SCP-1130 was removed from its position outside the subway station by the recovery team posing as a municipal work crew.